And it really rolled through in that Barcelona Grand Prix. It's the question all the people are asking at the moment. Have you got yourselves a genuine title contender in Fabio Di Giannantonio? Pablo?
It's a very good question, but I think the strategy that we have to be is race by race. This is just the beginner. You never know what happened here in MotoGP. It's very difficult, but also it's true that we are working in a very good way.
We'll come back to you, Pablo. We just had a big crash out there for Fabio Quartararo.
Yeah, we've got a red flag here. Jack's really sorry for cutting into Pablo Nieto. We'll pick it up as soon as we possibly can. Fabio Quartararo's crashed factory Yamaha right on the racing line, race direction, having no choice whatsoever to throw the red flag. You could see there Quartararo kicking gravel. He was frustrated as he walked away from the scene of the crime.
As he lost the front there through the left, and the bikes then tumbled through the gravel trap and has ultimately come to a rest on the racing line. See gravel everywhere across the entire width of the racetrack. We'll hopefully get a replay shortly. Quartararo was okay. You saw him walking away and rather angrily kicking the gravel trap as he trudged away from the scene there down at the Materazzi corner, favouring his left arm. Of course, he had a famous crash here last year where his shoulder came out. Is he going to lose the front? He is. Immediately parts company with a bike, which is then going to cartwheel its way back onto the racetrack and shedding some rear aero with it.
Yeah, gave a bit of a kiss there on the helmet for Fabio as well. Yeah, it certainly looks like he's going to have some abrasions, some bumps and bruises. Remember last year he dislocated his shoulder out to get the marshals to push it back in, didn't he? Okay, then so red flag, the Quartararo incident looks like he's going to have clean-up operation required. So first of all, apologies and thanks as always to his patience. Let's pick it up once again with Jack and Pablo Nieto.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Thanks for your patience, Pablo. I think the guys in the commentary did you guys a favour then. They just let Fabio go. So a bit of unwanted cardio for the mechanics there in this heat. As you were saying, what a moment that Fabio is in, but you want to try and keep everybody's feet on the ground.
Yeah, it's very important, no? Because this is very long. Of course, we have to think that we are in a very good moment, and we have to try to keep working like this, because in the end of the season it's going to be really important. Try to be constant, and then we will see what happens, no? Because then only wins one, so we have to try to make our best.
Where do you think this spark has come from so far this year? It's obvious the talent has always been there, but in previous years has maybe been struggled to find that consistency. So what has been the key to that spark and that consistency this year?
Yeah, I think the main point was last year in the winter test. We have the injury with him. He broke the collarbone, and we couldn't make the winter test, no? And we start just a little bit late from the other riders. This year we make a very good winter test. We was working really good, and it's really important to try to keep the best setup in that period. And in the end we found it. We didn't change a lot of things, and this is very important, because also the most important thing I think in MotoGP for the riders is try to be in the same bike, no? Sometimes happen that every time that the rider is going out from the track, different setup, different bike, so he must think about the bike, about the setup, and he's not thinking about the rider style, and we are very focused on that.
We saw a video after the victory where Valentino put his arm around Fabio and said, "Are you sure you want to leave?" What did he mean by that?
I don't know what he mean about that. Of course we wanted to keep it. It's going to be difficult, because also we have to understand that the goal for a rider is try to be a factory rider, and at the moment he's a factory rider, but he's not in a factory team. So, but I think we are better.
Yeah, Valentino told us in Barcelona that you've got 4 riders as candidates: Frankie Morbidelli, Luca Marini, Celestino Vietti and Nicolo Bulega. Are they all still in contention, or have you managed to shorten that list down?
Yeah, they are very interesting for us, no? Of course, at the moment we have to be calm to try to make a decision, because already we know that all the riders are very fast, very fast, but we have to think about our project, about Ducati, about everything, but still everything open. So at the moment, we have to check everything and we have to check how it's going the races.
Thanks, Pablo. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks once again to VR46 Ducati boss Pablo Nieto. Yes, as Valentino did in that great interview with Jack a couple weeks ago in Barcelona, confirming it will be one of 4 Italians that will be joining those ranks next year. I think Nicolo Bulega, who has been fielding constant questions about his future over in the Aragon World Superbike round this weekend, said basically it's going to be down to what Valentino decides in terms of his future. Of course, they are pretty close. He was a former VR46 Academy member back in the day, wasn't he, Nicola? Pit lane reopens then in just under 50 seconds time, so thankfully a short interruption after the quick clean-up operation, just to clear away and sweep away some of the gravel after Fabio Quartararo's turn 4 crash. So as you can see there on the right-hand side of your pictures, we are 30 seconds away from the resumption to complete the final 30 minutes or so of this practice session. That was before, unfortunately, Fabio Quartararo was chewing a bit of gravel at turn 4 rather reluctantly.
Taking a Yamaha around the side of the face as well. Fortunately, as mentioned, he walked away. Partly you might be thinking, just leave that Yamaha there, quite frankly, the way it's currently running for him at the moment. We have got Alex Rins still up there in 4th place, because we did see him getting towed around at the very start of the session. Quartararo's 17th, Miller 19th, and Toprak Razgatlioglu currently in 20th. And as we've already touched upon, Quartararo is perhaps the most extreme example of the 4 Yamahas that are seriously lacking straight line speed.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Rins with that toe behind Bagnaia sort of putting a bit of gloss on what's a gloomy picture right now for Yamaha. When you go down to their other riders, Fabio Quartararo 1.5 seconds off Bezzecchi early on in that session, Miller 1.8 seconds back, and Toprak Razgatlioglu, well, his rather nightmarish rookie season in MotoGP continues. He's just over 2 seconds off of the best pace. No doubt a bit of medical checkup and a wardrobe change possibly for Fabio Quartararo after his spill at turn 4. Let's get an update on the Frenchman. From Jack in pit lane.
Yeah, the good news is, as you guys saw walking away, his close friend and manager Tom Mobon just giving me the indication there that he is absolutely okay. Just a little bit of pain in that right arm. He has gone to the medical centre, I think, just to get it checked over. But the plan is that we will see Fabio back out in this session pretty swiftly. The good news, all okay for the Frenchman.
Good stuff. Thanks as always, Jack. Thanks to Tom Mobon, Fabio Quartararo's factory Yamaha, his personal manager, of course. This is what happens when you're so down on top speed, when you're getting absolutely killed on the 1.14 1 kilometre Mugello straight. You have to take risks in the braking zones, you have to take risks in the corner to try and find any kind of time, try and make up the deficit, and sometimes you just do push over that limit, as Fabio Quartararo found out to his cost at turn 4 on an occasion.
And you can see Toprak here is right up behind Marco Bezzecchi. There's Fabio Quartararo, who'll be making his way into the Yamaha box any moment now. So clearly has been given the thumbs up at the medical centre and will be, albeit only with 1 bike now available at his disposal, set to rejoin this practice session. Of course, Quartararo very recently, back-to-back Q2 appearances, even if one of those back at the French Grand Prix, of course, at home, did come via Q1. Does feel as if he's got a bit of an uphill climb to make that 3 in a row.
Yeah, amazingly going for 3 top 6 finishes in a row in MotoGP for the first time in 4 years, as he starts the inquest here with his crew chief. Out you picture Diego Ghibellini, a few Yamaha engineers hanging on every word of Fabio Quartararo. Quite understandably so. I mean, it's mission impossible, isn't it? Mission impossible. You're giving up so much time on this start-finish straight, as the Yamahas are. As Alex Rins has proven, you can do a time with the slipstream, but you can't keep doing that for, what, 11 laps in the sprint, 23 laps in the Grand Prix. You're just going to get picked off and picked off. Yellow flags out in turn 1, San Donato, and it's Jack Miller. So more Yamaha misery, unfortunately. We've had Quartararo down at turn 4, and now with a rather frustrating trudge away from his crash, it's Pramac Yamaha's Jack Miller who's on the floor at turn 1.
He's going to come through the picture already on his side there into turn number 1. Once again, further graphic proof of just how hard these Yamaha riders are having to push at the moment.
That went early, didn't it? That went really early. Okay then, KTM had a pretty tough Saturday and Sunday, didn't they, over in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago. Are they on course maybe to break their own top speed record here in Mugello this weekend? Let's get some thoughts from KTM Motorsport Director Pit Byra, who joins Jack.
Yeah, an emotional weekend for everybody in Barcelona, but I imagine none more so than for you, Pit, when the emotions, the adrenaline started to sap away on Sunday evening into Monday morning, and you started to take account of what happened. Did you really start to appreciate what a missed opportunity it was in Barcelona?
Well, honestly, I'm really super thankful that we didn't have any heavy injuries. I mean, not heavy, I mean, there are some real serious injuries out there. But so I think, first of all, we have to be thankful for that. Then you need to look, of course, and analyze what happened result-wise for us. And yeah, that was pretty tough to swallow. Like, where we could finish Friday in first position, take a pole. Yeah, just almost win that sprint race on Saturday, and then yeah, lead 3 restarts and until the very end, and then it's like for Pedro with empty hands. So it was really a tough, yeah, just a tough weekend. And then even Monday morning again for the test, everything was fine again from the speed. So general performance was there, outcome was really terrible. So yeah, I think like everybody expected, it was a tough KTM week right after Barcelona.
How do you go about picking everybody up within the team and making sure that that energy is still there coming into this weekend?
Why, I'm just so happy for the team we have. I mean, it's like this team just worked all Sunday to Monday, night through to have a great test on Monday, and then Pedro could perform, felt good on the track, and we made a step with Maverick, who went even faster on Monday than in qualifying. So yeah, we just keep working, and honestly, I don't need to motivate that team. The team is just motivating me and whole KTM for all the effort they're putting in.
Just finally, I saw a familiar face in the box this morning, Mr. Kurt Trieb, who has been so important to the engine design and the engine performance here at KTM. It seems as though his holiday to Japan was quite short-lived.
Yes, yes, that's true. I mean, it was never a secret that I was really sad when he left, but I was also underlining all the time that we stayed friends every single moment, even during the split. And that was a really good base to talk to him very early and ask him if he's happy in Japan. And yeah, obviously he was not. So we could bring him back, and I'm just happy. I think Kurt is one of us. He belongs to us, and now he's back home. And I think also just exactly the right moment within this transition from 1000 to 850. We have a fantastic team at home, but just to have his supervision somewhere there sitting, giving us the right advice in the right moment, I just feel better, more secure and more safe, and his ideas are just always amazing, so it's good to have him back.
Seems like good timing to have him back in the box this weekend, because there's a lot of chat that we might see a new MotoGP top speed records this weekend. Is it possible?
We really didn't focus on that because you need the lap time and we need to perform, and we had all these records we wanted. We need to fight for the podium. That's most important to keep Pedro also in the points hunt, and so we ideally have different targets this weekend. Whoever takes a top speed record, it's fine. We wanna fight for the podium.
Be nice if it remained in orange, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course, it's nice when you look at this picture and you see our boys there with this top speed record. It's a nice one, and if it's not broken this year, I think it can last for a while. So, but like I said, we have a different focus this weekend.
Thanks, mate. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to KTM boss Pit Byra. Yeah, Kurt Trieb quickly back in the Mattinghofen ranks, and he did, as Jack mentioned, engineer and produce and design the fastest engine in Grand Prix racing history. 366.1 kilometres an hour, the RC16 blasted down the start-finish straight here for both Brad Binder and for Pol Espargaro. Will that be beaten here this weekend? We're going to be giving a close eye in the sprint to the Grand Prix when the slipstream comes into effect as well, and in qualifying potentially. And yeah, it was a very short-lived affair, wasn't it, Kurt Trieb's adventure over at Honda? Clearly that didn't work out at all, but Kurt Trieb welcomed back with open arms into KTM, as you would expect he would be.
Of course, with a change of engine capacity for next year with the 850s. KTM and all the manufacturers looking for as strong a particular engine department as they can find to make sure they all roll out in the early part of next year, February, March next year, with the very best 850cc MotoGP bike that anyone can get their hands on. Of course, having retained the collaboration with Tech 3, having been some talk that they might have also gone to Honda for next season. Good to Steiner and the Tech 3 squad confirming last time out in Barcelona that they would be staying with KTM to ensure that there are a quartet of RC16s on the grid next year.
HRC have been open to some European influence, haven't they, on the technical side the last couple of years, because they headhunted Romano Alvesiano away from Aprilia a couple of years ago after he'd been the tech guru for the Noali factory for a good decade or so. But yeah, clearly just not a match made in heaven, as both parties I'm sure would have hoped for. But I guess Honda's loss is KTM's gain, as Fabio Quartararo looks to gain some lap time around this Mugello circuit, and he's going to need to find at least half a second to have any hope of troubling the Q2 places, or the automatic Q2 places. He has got himself a nice new shiny set of Alpine Stars Yamaha leathers. If anybody is going to be able to block out adversity and find a special lap around Mugello, because that's what he's built his career on, it will be Fabio Quartararo.
KTMs, who we were discussing a moment ago, though, they also do need to find some pace in the final 21 minutes. We've got Bastianini in 8th at the moment, but the other trio, KTM, Vinales down in 12th. Binder and Acosta are, well, Acosta's just ahead of Binder, 15th and 16th respectively. They are the best part of a second and a half off the pace, respectively. So also the RC16's in need of some improvements at the moment. We've got Aprilia's first and second. We've got a Ducati third, Yamaha fourth, Ducati fifth, Aprilia 6th and 7th, KTM 8th. Ducati out again, 9th, and as it stands, the one Honda heading through to Q2, you put the flag out now, would be the rookie at LCR, Diogo Moreira. Yeah,
Bezzecchi's decision to go early on a soft rear tyre has already paid off big style, hasn't he? He got a 45.024 in as a nice marker, a nice reference. Catch him if you can was the message from the factory Aprilia camp. So Bezzecchi already threatening 44s, and that was on his opening time attack. Okay, Pirro. Standing in this weekend in Mugello, at least, for the absent Alex Marquez. Once again, we send our best wishes for a speedy recovery to Alex. We know he's not here this weekend in Mugello after that nasty incident with Pedro Acosta in Barcelona. He's definitely ruled out of next weekend's Grand Prix of Hungary as well. Although at the moment, all the Gresini Ducati have told us, and they've told the world, is that Pirro's in for Alex this weekend. It's not been announced who will be on that usually stick of 73 Gresini Ducati in Balaton. We're talking they're waiting for Nicolo Bulliger to be available. Would Bulliger have been the preferred pick this weekend had he not had World Superbike obligations over at Motorland Aragon? What is not in doubt, though, is Michele Pirro is the occupier of that Gresini Ducati here this weekend, and he's just put in his best time for 147.555.
Yeah, that compares to...
Jan Fernandez, not a happy camper at Mugello. I think the only unhappy camper here this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So far, absolutely, Jan Fernandez not having the FP2 session he nor the team would have wanted. Heavily destructed, unfortunately, for Fernandez, who, as I mentioned, was one of the quickest riders yesterday, finished inside the top 3 and was looking really strong on the pace as well. Another rider who was looking really strong yesterday was Marco Morelli, and he's looking good here as well on the number 97. Lapping alone, of course, as well. We're getting a real feel for who's looking quick here. Ruche Mouli, shout out to the young South African. He was happy with his feeling yesterday, just missed out on a top 14 as well, did Moodley. So we'll get Marco Morelli around the final corner, turn 15 of Buccini, and then it's all about firing it towards the checkered flag come the end of the race, of course, the end of qualifying, and just trying to nail the exit, especially when you've not got slipstream. Is this going to take Morelli up to P2? Slotted in behind his teammate, it does not, but he still improved. So this is another strong showing for Marco Morelli, who just needs to fine-tune a few details, he said, and just work out how to be a bit more aggressive and be a bit better on the opening few laps to get himself into a better position to use his pace that he knows he's got to be able to fight for more podiums and victories.
I'll tell you what, that was a graphic illustration as well, that he was just under a tenth under over what Keyless has done, what his teammates been able to do, and then no slipstream on the run to the line. He ends up 2.5 tenths, a quarter of a second away. So that's 2 tenths on the run to the line out of Buccini up to the finish line there. Obviously, it's a bit more across the entire length of the straight. That's going to be what we're focusing on in qualifying. But as far as drag racing to the line is concerned, we see it every year here at Mugello. I think I said it yesterday, since 2012 when the inception of Moto 3, there's only been one finish that's been more than a tenth of a second, and even that was a tenth and a half. Everything else has been a finish settled by less than a tenth of a second here in Moto 3 at Mugello, and that's why. Look at it, it's a small uphill bit as well, so slipstream vital there, but really you can really do with a big draft, not only in qualifying but also to propel you up there as well into winning ways. Carpe again loses 2 tenths there. Let's see what Esteban does. See, he doesn't lose any time because he's got his teammate up ahead of him, Matteo Bertelli. So that's what I'm talking about there. That little bit of slipstream just helps you maintain whatever margin you've got over or under the pole lap time. And 2 tenths, it's a free 2 tenths cell when the bike in front of you is punching a massive hole in the air. It's 2 tenths to find that you don't need to because it's there right in front of you.
Yeah, and that's why we saw yesterday, we see it all the time in Moto 3, don't we? At Catalunya, for example, as a Conor along the front straight as well. But we always see in Moto 3 riders trying to get a bit of slipstream, but here it's probably the most important on the calendar in terms of trying to get someone in front of you to punch a hole in the air. Intrigued to see how the tactics play out in qualifying later on. Will the Leopard Honda duo be flying formation in Q2? Then I've got to hope Pini enters the Q2 fray from Q1, of course, as Fernandez again re-enters the circuit, and fingers crossed for the number 31. This is going to be a final 10 minutes of not being able to pit and just get a few laps on the board.
And just to finish off on the slipstream effect as well, when you multiply that by 2 or 3 bikes you've got ahead of you, that's a massive hole, massive draft that you're able to take advantage of. So 1 bike's good, but if you can find yourself behind 2 or 3, then you're really in the box seat. They always say you don't really want to lead out the last corner here at Mugello. It has worked a few times, but more often than not you are caught out.
Including last year, Quiles did lead out the final corner. Of course, came very close. Alvaro Carpe was the rider to push him close. But if you can get a good run out of the final corner, it is possible, despite having about 10 riders behind you, to win the race to the line. However, yes, we do normally see riders sometimes try not to lead out of that final corner. But if you make a move, as Quiles did a year ago, and make a good one stick, and then get a good run out of the final corner, you can, of course, reach the checkered flag first.
The other thing as well that some of the riders, particularly in Moto 3, have spoken about is that you are at times too close to actually benefit from any slipstream. You're that close to the rider in front of you that the air is still channeling around you, so it doesn't actually bring you in at all. You just kind of sat there, and I think that was a bit of the situation for Carpe last year. It was just all a little bit too close. You need that tenth or so to build up and really drag you along up and past the rider up ahead of you. This is Cormac Buchanan. They're all ready to go out now. There's a few riders out on track, but all of the other riders in pit lane will be looking to go out for the final 9 minutes or so, get a few laps in, and maybe even like for the likes of Pini, Uriarte, Buchanan, O'Gorman, who find themselves down in Q1 later, good opportunity to go out and do a time attack session. This is one rider as well who is going to need that. Hakim Danish goes out with just over 8.5 minutes on the clock, and he's latched on to David Munoz. So if there's anyone to try and follow and pursue to try and set a fast lap time, a time attack lap time, then David Munoz is perhaps not the worst idea. These two are going to have to get a hurry up now, because look at how Fernandez slides into San Donato. No teething problems this time around. So this is an important 8 minutes for Fernandez on as well, because by the time he's going out in Q2, that'll be the next time we see Fernandez on track. He's going to want to make sure that Leopard Honda is working absolutely perfectly by the time he's ready to fight the screen and go for rope later on.
Yeah, 100%. Another reason why riders might be going for a mini time attack ahead of qualifying is because they've got some tyres in hand after a wet FP1 session as well, so they don't really have to worry about using up some sets of tyres. Of course, saving at least 2 for qualifying. If you're going into Q1 and then into Q2 later on, ideally you'd have 3 3, maybe 4. Obviously, that's very difficult when it's a fully dry weekend, but they've got some tyres in hand. A little moment there, wasn't it, for Joan Fernandez coming through Arrabbiata 1, and then you power it up the hill. Fast right-hander into Arrabbiata, a phenomenal piece of circuit on what is basically a phenomenal ribbon of tarmac here, nestled into the Tuscan Hills. But Fernandez, thankfully for him and the team, looking strong here. I'd like to see the rest of the lap.
Yes, exactly, and we pick it up now out of Pelagio and up over the top of the hill and down the other side into Correntine. Fernandez, you said he had a couple of moments down at Arrabbiata 1. He's had a few moments all the way around for the bits of the lap we've seen. I've got to say, he was a little bit sideways on into turn 1. He was sideways on into Casanova and Savelli. He's through Biondetti without dramas, doesn't exceed track limits. Now on the burst down to Buccini. This is another area where you can get a bit of slipstream. There's not really a back straight on this track, but those little inclinations up hills and down the other sides, they can provide a bit of slipstream too, as well as down in towards that final corner. So slipstream pivotal here in some areas of the track where you might not think it. Fernandez coming to the line, 3/10 off after 3 sectors. Where does this put him up into 74.5 off the top time set by Quiles earlier on in this session? So Fernandez's gremlins from earlier in this session have gone away, and he's been able to get his head down now as Munoz and Denise behind him try and latch on, and probably a really good reference from David Munoz as well, who's second in this session. But we'll be able to study Adrian Fernandez. We know these two are not the best of friends from various incidents in the past, but for sure we'll be able to be talking about that more as qualifying and the races get underway. We pick up the 18-year-old Guido Pini, who's just come by his village, because that's the side of the circuit where Scarperia is, and now he loops back round. This is where he crashed out last year. A little bit of contact, I think it was with Joel Kelso, and then down he went just here, and he's very, very lucky to not be collected. But Guido Pini at the moment in 12th place, looking to try and get in the top 10 on Saturday morning, and hopefully that'll be a springboard for something a little bit special later on, even if it is via Q1.
Yeah, 100%. Always nice to see the home heroes doing well. Of course, if you're Italian, you'll love to see Guido Pini doing well, but it's always special to see riders at the home Grand Prix, especially in Moto 3 and Moto 2, when you're sort of not the star of the show in MotoGP. Plenty of Italians, of course, in MotoGP for the home support to cheer on, but Guido Pini does not get more local to Mugello than where Guido Pini is from. You could pretty much throw a stone over Arrabbiata 2 or Scarperia and it would reach the village of Scarperia, as we get Guido Pini on the 94 and Jesus Rios on the 54, rising over the crest before hard on the anchors into San Donato.
I don't know what you do in your village, mate, but I certainly don't start throwing stones all over the gaff. So let's just call for calm, please, in the Moto 3 commentary box in Moto 3 FP2. And yes, that is coming from a Millwall fan. I know what you're thinking there. We haven't had an Italian winner here in Moto 3 in Mugello since Dennis Foggia back in 2021. That was on Honda machinery, though. That was Honda's last win round here as well. There's the massive, great big 94. The fans have seen themselves on the screen, and there you go, Potty, as we pick up Guido Pini here, working his way through Arrabbiata 1 and 2. Before that, we've had Tony Arbolino, Andrea Migno, of course, and that classic from 2017, Romano Fenati back in 2014. And as far as Moto 3 is concerned, that is all but going back through 125s. Obviously, Simone Corsi, Mattia Passini, Roberto Locatelli, Lucio Cecchinello. The LCR Honda team put out a brilliant video of Lucio Cecchinello himself taking victory in the lightweight class here back in 2003. Do go and check it out. Then obviously Roberto Locatelli and some fella called Valentino Rossi was the first ever 125cc winner since Mugello was the full home of MotoGP since 1994. He went on to do some pretty decent things, I'm told. Won here in 250s in 99 and then 7 on the spin 2002 until 2008. So Valentino Rossi, magic most places, but Mugello really, really special. It's a massive event for all the Italian riders, and I think when you're so close, as you say, Al, a stone's throw for Guido Pini from the village where he is to the track where he is now, yeah, it means a bit more to Guido Pini than most other Italians, I think.
Yeah, 100%. When you're that close and see, is it 7 metre tall?
7 metre tall
7 metre tall,
yeah.
94 when you're coming into the circuit, of course. Friends and family here as well. A really special event, and it was great that when we were driving into the Mugello area on Wednesday, the first MotoGP bit of merchandise, banner, whatever you want to call it, we saw was a big orange I Drive Pines number 54, which is very, very good indeed.
And I've got to say, Al, the other thing is, like, it is the Italian GP, but there isn't that kind of, you know, when we go to Misano, there's the Rossi merch, there's the Ducati merch, there's all the merch around Misano is from the riders from that area, and that's right as well, and that's fair enough, and da-da-da-da-da. But you'd think at the Italian GP, there's even more Ducati, Rossi, da-da-da-da-da. But there isn't. It is all Guido Pini and the surrounding villages. We're staying just up the road in Vicchio, and even there, and on the road into Borgo San Lorenzo, the big town, and then Scarperia, the little village where we went and played football on Thursday. It's all Guido Pini. It's absolutely brilliant. I've never seen such support for a rider further down the classes. But he is a local lad, and he would have grown up. He's only 18 years of age, so I reckon if he was born in 2008, he might have only just been born in time for Valentino Rossi's last win round here. So very, very special for Guido Pini, not only to be racing here in the World Championship, but likewise to have such support. And it really is all Guido Pini in this part of Italy. Let's get back then to the final 2 minutes of this Moto 3 MV2 session. The time at the top is a 1:55.277. That hasn't changed, or at least for the moment it hasn't changed, because Alvaro Carpe is leading around this little train of riders, and at the moment he's looking to go into P1. But I've got to say, Ruche Moodley is in the box seat here to get a bit of slipstream. He's using that slipstream to good effect to get past Uriarte. Carpe goes P1, Moodley P2. So great job from the South African. Fantastic. Up into second. That'll put a smile on Jose Boe's face.
Certainly will. That's what Moodley was saying yesterday, as I mentioned earlier, was feeling good, and he was in Q2 for quite a while in the practice session before being bumped out in the latter stages. Carpe, another rider, he goes directly into Q2, but he said yesterday that the position he 55.2 271 without any slipstream as well, similar to Carpe, a couple of attempts slower than his fellow Spaniard, but yeah, the sort of cream of Moto 3 rising to the top here late in F2. Carpe top, obviously Max Quiles has just been shuffled down to P4 but was leading for most of the session, and Munoz rising to P3 as well. Yeah,
Carpe looks really, really good, of course. He was on pole for the first time here last year, of course. He did start from pole over in Silverstone, but that was for a penalty for his teammate last year, Jose Antonio Oda. What are we having a look at here? Is this just Alvaro Carpe's exit as he gets on the power? This is Ruche Moodley coming underneath Brian Uriarte, and he's going to get by him by the line. But a nice slow-mo there of the final corner with 30 seconds on the clock. I think we've got 5 seconds left on the clock now before the checkered flag comes out. A couple of changes up inside the top 5. Scott Ogden has just moved up into the top 5 as well, so the fastest from Friday is 5th on Saturday morning. Great job by Doncaster's finest. Guido Pini from Scarperia as he's scarpering up into the top 10. Oh, he goes better than that, goes up into the top 6, and that is a really good, solid start to Saturday morning for Guido Pini. That is more like, I've got to say, comes across the line in the end in 7th, because moving up there, Jesus Rios has found more good pace, so good to see Jesus Rios coming of age, it seems, in Moto 3 over the last couple of weeks or so since he went to his much-loved Montmello. Alvaro Carpe at the moment has got it all done and dusted. I'm not seeing any red helmets. Well, Rico Salmella was up through the first sector, so let's just wait and see what Salmella can do, who is down at the moment in 21st place. But it looks like it is more or less all done and dusted. Alvaro Carpe and a Ruche Moodley. Well, I'll tell you what, El, that's Ruche Moodley's best session of the year. He's not been higher than 14th in any session. That was when he qualified in the middle of that 5th row over in Jerez at the end of April. So a month later, and Moodley is second only to Alvaro Carpe, last year's pole sitter here on Saturday morning in FP2. Great job by the South African.
Yeah, absolutely, and as I mentioned, great to hear Moodley feeling good yesterday and sort of singing from a positive hymn sheet. It was here last year where he picked up quite a nasty injury in the race, multiple fractures to his right arm, so got a few demons to banish around Mugello as Moodley, and he's doing exactly that. A top weekend so far, has to go through Q1 but missed out by a very slender margin, and Cormac Buchanan as well, just outside the top 10 in P11. He had a good day yesterday as well. Said that's the best he's felt since his massive Brazil crash, of course, a couple of months ago now, I think it was. We were in Brazil as it gets a bit busy towards the end of the session here in this gaggle of riders.
Yeah, that was Eddie O'Shea just getting out the seat there ahead of his fellow countryman Scott Ogden. So the Brits in formation flying to the line. Rico Salmela, yeah, I was going to say that's going to bump him right up. Got a load of slipstream there. So up into P3, just by Rouchet Moodley, who I've got to say is going to be properly in the Moodley to have a great qualifying one session and hopefully get himself up into Q2. But I've got to say, Al, with the exception of Veda Patama, who is in pit lane, everyone has taken the checkered flag. That is all she wrote. And right on cue, Rico Salmela moving up into P3. Great job by the young Finn in his rookie season. And he'll be looking to try and replicate that later on in qualifying, but he's got to go through Q1. He's one of the big names. He's got a little bit of work to do, number 27.
Yeah, good 8 lap from Sam Mellor. Got a bit of help from slipstream, of course, but had to hook up the rest of the lap. And yeah, nice to see the Finn back inside that top 3 for the first time in a while. Not sure why Veda Patama is in the pits. I'm not sure he completed the session, so something not quite right there with the Indonesian. No such worries for Q1 though. He's going straight into Q2 after a late lap yesterday. Did say that he needs to work on his race consistency, his rhythm in this FP2 session as Veda Patama. So fingers crossed that's not a massive problem, and he'll be all good to head out and qualify later on. I'm sure he will be. Just yeah, maybe just missed a few laps. How many laps did he really? He completed 15 overall, so on par with the most of anybody. So maybe just called it quits a little bit earlier than usual.
And there you can see fastest on Saturday morning. Alvaro Carpe, I mentioned that lap record earlier on from David Alonso. We're still just over a second away from that, so don't worry too much about that. Expect qualifying will be well into the 54s. It may be towards that lap record as impressive as it was from the Colombian David Alonso. But that is all on Moto3's morning here on Saturday. It is Alvaro Carpe who leads the way, a 55.0 ahead of Rouchet Moodley and Rico Salmela. David Munoz there in 4th place out of Max Kilos. Jesus Rios, top Honda honours to him in 6th place, and number 54 going great as well out of Scott Ogden. Guido Pini, your home hero, Brian Uriarte, who's in Q1 later on, and Marco Morelli. All the way down the order, you can see David Almanza down there in 14th, just ahead of Eddie O'Shea, Joel Esteban, Hakim Danish, Valentin Peroni, that'll be away for him, 18th in the morning, all the way down to Leo Ramastorfer in 26th place, just behind your Japanese duo of Ryusei Yamanaka and Zen Matani. But FP2 comes to a close. That means that I'm out of here. Lewis Sotheby is moving in. Moto 2 is up next. FP2 for those guys. Enjoy.
And it is a very good morning to you once again from Mugello. This is the Mugello we were promised. Beautiful, blazing sunshine, which we're expecting for the rest of this weekend. The slightly iffy start to proceedings yesterday, where we began this Italian Grand Prix on a wet track. Fortunately, that's the last we're going to see of that. This is one of the motorcycle racing circuits where you get to see MotoGP in the raw. You get to see it at its quickest, at its least restricted, and at its most exciting. So with perfect conditions predicted for this Sprint Saturday and for our Grand Prix Sunday action tomorrow, with all 3 races of course to come tomorrow. Set fair for a cracking weekend. Already in Moto 3, it's looking close and competitive. And Moto 2 promises plenty already after the action of yesterday, even if they did have just the one fully dry session in the intermediate class yesterday. The top 3 in the World Championship all raising their hand and trying to stake a claim to be the genuine favourite for this weekend's Italian Grand Prix. And it was an Italian who did end the opening day on top. Celestino Vietti, who topped both Friday sessions back in Barcelona. Fastest yesterday afternoon, but there was so little to choose between the top 3, the title frontrunners with Ethan Guevara second in the points, and the overall leader, Manu Gonzalez, right behind Vietti, just a tenth of a second, covering the top three. And are we set for a genuine early title showdown between those three riders this weekend? 31.5 points covers them, with Senna Regis 8 points further back in fourth. He was completing the top 10 yesterday, so don't rule him out of getting involved in the action either. But certainly it would appear that the top three in the points as we stand are the three likely favourites for Italian Grand Prix glory. And of course, you'd imagine that the fans here in Mugello will have their eyes on one of those in particular. But that is this young man, Celestino Vietti, who of course has already tasted victory on 8 previous occasions in Moto2, including a couple at Misano, but he has not yet won at Mugello. Lewis Sotheby and Elliot York are with you for this Moto2 FP2 session, and many, of course, in this part of the world who have an affinity with Valentino Rossi and therefore his academy graduates. I'm sure they will be lending their support to Celestino Vietti this weekend.
Yeah, good morning, mate. Hello to everyone tuning in for Moto2, and look at the hillsides here at Mugello filling up very nicely. The weather is playing ball, and the fans, I'm sure, will make a racket this afternoon, this morning as well. They already are revving the engines here in Mugello, and as Lewis mentions, they'll be revving them in this session and of course in qualifying later on for Celestino Vietti. A brilliant start to the weekend for Vietti, who I feel can really announce himself. He might have done that already, to be fair to Celestino, but I think if a victory here, or at least a real victory push, which looks very, very likely heading into tomorrow, can really announce himself as a proper title contender, and of course knock on the doctor's door and say, Valentino, look at me, I'm ready to make the jump into MotoGP. Of course, we know there's a vacancy available in the VR46 racing team. A few candidates, of course, but Celestino Vietti, as we understand, is one of those. So there's no real better place to really announce yourself as a genuine title contender, a genuine rider to move up to MotoGP next year, and just in general to try and clinch victory. A dream for anyone to win at the home Grand Prix. But especially for the Italians here at Mugello. And Vietti looking really good and just continuing that great momentum that he's found in 2026 so far. Was obviously second in the United States, a couple of top sixes in between that, between Jerez and in France as well, and then backed it up with a very close P2 to the rider we just saw on our screens, Manu Gonzalez, the World Championship leader, who, as we know, was inside the top three and looking really good again yesterday.
And it took the best ride, the best victory of Manu Gonzalez' life to beat Celestino Vietti in Barcelona. And Chele was saying yesterday that it really was tough to lose in those circumstances in Barcelona, to lose at such a late stage, having done so much of the running, so much of the heavy lifting in that race. Of course, it's not just about the top three in the championship here this weekend, and of course we'll see in this session perhaps a more clearer picture on who we should be looking out for in tomorrow's Grand Prix. But right behind the top three yesterday was Philip Salach, who you just saw there on screen down at American Racing. He was within about a tenth and a half of Vietti's overall pace, the only rider who could really lay a glove on the top three in yesterday's practice session. Once again, a slightly disrupted FP1 for Salach, where he only put in 3 laps. Fortunately for him, though, the conditions weren't wholly representative, and we saw much more like the Philip Salach we were coming to expect in the afternoon when he took 4th place. Smile on the face, when isn't there, of young David Alonso. I guess another mixed story as far as the Aspar team are concerned. Yesterday, Alonso comfortably enough through to Q2 in 8th. His teammate, though, Dani Holgado, found himself on the outside looking in as he tries to rebuild confidence after a poor early spring run.
Yeah, 2 different stories emerging from the Aspar team yesterday in terms of David Alonso, how he was feeling, and Dani Holgado. Yeah, surprised to see Holgado missing out. We thought he'd sort of turned a corner at both at Le Mans. Of course, we know how that race ended. Disqualification at the end of it, a big crash before the red flag too as well. But then backed it up with a really solid result, and from what Holgado was saying, he'd sort of regained that sort of confidence that had just gone astray slightly in the middle part of these opening 6 races of the campaign, but just said yesterday he was not comfortable, tried to change his riding style around some parts of this Mugello circuit, but just didn't work. So maybe Holgado will switch back to what he knows this morning, and obviously we're going to see in the upcoming 30-minute session how Holgado is feeling. But on the other side of the box, Alonso was very happy with how he was feeling yesterday. No issues with the shoulder, which he was saying at the end of the Catalan Grand Prix, and now obviously a week and a bit more of training, recuperation, rehab. Alonso is feeling really good. Absolutely zero issues with that shoulder. He said it feels great, happy with the overall feeling, just needs to make a couple more steps on the overall pace. And we know in time attack mode, Alonso is where he's struggled most. That's his Achilles heel in Moto2 so far in the last season, and a little bit more, of course, including last season and this season. Alonso, if he can qualify on the top 2 rows, Alonso is going to be a real threat come Sunday. We're going to see obviously the pace in FP2 coming up in the 30 minutes, but Holgado has got more work to do than Alonso at this stage of the weekend.
Yeah, Alonso was pretty consistent on his run at the start of FP of practice yesterday. He was doing laps very comfortably in the low 151s. Holgado was around about half a second a lap slower than Alonso at the same time in this session, so a clear step needing to be made for Holgado. In terms of championship position, he is the biggest name going through qualifying 1 later on today. Holgado, he is 7th in the World Championship. We'll be seeing him in qualifying 1 later on today. The next highest rider in the World Championship who's going to be in that Q1 session is Tony Arbolino, who is 12th in the World Championship. He was down in 23rd at the end of practice yesterday. Here is Colin Wyatt, who kept up his 100% automatic Q2 record yesterday. 7 out of 7 for him, but there's another rider who was targeting a step forward today. He was the thick end of a second adrift of Vietti and Guevara at the sharp end yesterday.
Yeah, the Dutchman said yesterday at the beginning of practice, the first few laps encountered a couple of struggles, a couple of problems, but managed to iron those out. And yeah, he said overall he was quite happy yesterday, but as you rightly mentioned, Lewis, steps need to be made if he wants to bridge the gap to sort of top 4, top 5 riders that we saw yesterday in the session. Vietti, Gonzalez, Guevara, Salat are all split by a 10.5. A bit of a gap then to Alonso Lopez in P5, but the sort of top 3, top 4 were the standouts yesterday. So Via and a few more riders, Alonso have mentioned as well, just need to make a bit more of a step forwards in race rhythm terms and on 1 lap pace, of course, coming into qualifying. But we know Via doesn't really struggle with that this year, does he? Was a pole position in Jerez and claimed a front row start over in Barcelona as well. But yeah, just for Via and a few others, just need to improve little areas, as we so often see in motorcycle racing ahead of Saturday morning's FP2 session. And then qualifying is all about sort of not taking the brain fully out, but just doing what you need to do, doing what you know how to do on a motorcycle, and just going all out for a qualifying time attack mode. But this session isn't about that, it's all about getting dialed in for the race. And Manu Gonzalez said yesterday that it's really important to see how the tyre life lasts. Obviously not as critical or as weird, let's call it, over in Barcelona. Barcelona is quite a unique circuit for that, but still, as everywhere we go, tyre life and managing the rear tyre especially is absolutely crucial around here.
You just saw Javi Zuratuza there. Reminder, he's in for Jorge Navarro. We've also, of course, got the injury replacement for Ankle Piqueras, Unai Aradre down at MSI, and Mario Aggi, if you weren't with us yesterday, he's undergone recent surgery. We won't be seeing him this weekend, nor we suspect next weekend in Hungary. Key session, it feels like this, of course, doesn't count towards overall qualifying. Q2 places, or at least 14 of them, decided yesterday. We're on board with Ethan Guevara, who secured one of them. Of course, qualifying 1 to come later on this afternoon. But I guess given that the Moto2 field only have 1 fully dry session, any representative running to their name so far, and you look at what kind of lappage they were doing yesterday. Vietti did 16 laps, Guevara did 14 yesterday. The race distance here in Mugello Moto2 tomorrow is 19 laps, so no one has put anything close to race distance on either of the super soft compounds of rear tyre. The front tyre also is often very critical around this circuit because of the long fast corners we have here at Mugello. So we said at the start of practice yesterday, didn't we, that the teams and the riders are trying to condense sort of 3 sessions worth of practice running into 2, and no one wants to make a mistake in this FP2 session, because you'll be going into tomorrow's Grand Prix pretty much in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. Something that Rueda, the reigning Moto3 world champion, of course, said yesterday, that he was really disappointed to not get FP1 in the dry conditions, we know that coming into the weekend it was going to be these sorts of conditions, no real threat of rain at all, unless something drastically changes with the weather forecast. And Rueda had to obviously, in the practice session, learn how to ride this place, along with Luke Nenetetai for Osato, of course, as well, and a few other riders who haven't been here before, learn this phenomenal but demanding and tricky circuit, very technical circuit as well, in a session where the pressure is on. Of course, in the opening half of the practice session, you can relax a little bit more and try and figure out the setting, but also not really relax, because you know that come the end of the session, in the final 50 minutes, you have to push all out to try and get in that top 14, and missing free practice one when the pressure is off, and that's where you can really try and learn the track and not worry too much about the time. That will come in the afternoon, but they lost that session yesterday, as Lewis rightly mentioned, same with the Moto3 riders as well. So that's sort of ramps up the pressure for the rookies and a few riders, including Tony Arbolino on our screens now in this session, where they lost the morning session, didn't get it right in the afternoon session yesterday afternoon, so getting laps on the board here in the 27 remaining minutes is absolutely vital.
Fifth Q1 appearance of the season coming up for Arbolino this afternoon, and the fourth in a row. He has, in two of the previous three, gone through to Q2. Didn't achieve that in Barcelona last time out, and that was where his 100% points record for 2026 came to an end, when Arbolino, after a poor start to the Grand Prix, found himself ultimately only able to get as high as 17th at the checkered flag. Both of the Fantic riders are in qualifying one later on today. It was a poor day yesterday for Barry Baltus, down in 19th place, 1.2 seconds off the pace. Baltus, of course, back to this time last season, was one of the former horses in Moto2, even if he didn't necessarily get a great result here after a crash in qualifying. But Baltus finds himself in qualifying one for the second Grand Prix weekend in a row. He will certainly be a name to watch closely in that Q1 session later on. Certainly amongst the names that we should be keeping an eye out for in Q1 later on. We've mentioned Holgado. The two Mark VDS Boscoscuros, certainly we need to be keeping an eye on too. Denis Unchu's 16th, Harry Kinnett was 18. Certainly looked better over a longer run, which didn't have the explosive pace that they needed over a time attack. And we know Harry Kinnett has a pretty good record around here. He is a twice former pole sitter here at the Mugello circuit, so he is certainly another name that we'll be expecting to advance when he takes part in Q1 later on this afternoon.
Yeah, one Mark VDS rider considerably happier than the other rider, judging from yesterday. Okay, one finished P16, Denis Onchu, one was 18th. Aaron Kinnett both going through Q1, but Onchu was feeling much more confident. Said it was a strong Friday overall, was quite consistent and doesn't feel very far away, and was actually quite disappointed, understandably so. But in terms of how the 53 you just saw burst through the screens there was feeling, he felt he had enough to get into Q2, but that obviously wasn't the case. But Kinnett was saying he missed something in time attack yesterday. Sector 1 and Sector 4 was Kinnett really struggling yesterday. Sector 1 is turn 1, 2, 3, and just before you get to turn 4 is where Sector 1 ends, and then the final sector is, of course, the famous beyond the chicane of 13 and 14, the final corner of 15, and then, as we see, David Alonso running to the line. That is Sector 4. So those are the areas where Kinnett pinpointed yesterday where he really needs to make a step forward.
Straight away, that is David Alonso's fastest lap of the weekend here in Mugello, 1:50.046. That is 8 thousandths of a second only, but it is quicker than he went in any stage in practice yesterday. So some early potential signs of progress for the Colombian, who needs to try and get his World Championship challenge up and running. We still are very much considering him a title contender. We're only 6 races in, not even a third of the way through the season yet in Moto2, but Alonso at this stage is 46.5 points off the lead as we ride on board with Celestino Vietti. He's second at the moment, ahead of Alonso and Ethan Guevara. Philip Salach has now taken top spot, the first rider of the morning, into the 1:49 to 49.9 for Salach. Fastest lap of the weekend so far, for your reference, not that it will necessarily matter in this session. Vietti did a 49.4 yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, Ethan Guevara, another rider to do it, a 49.4. 11 thousandths per second was splitting the riders second and third in the championship standings. Alistair Screech, another good day yesterday. He was back up inside the top 6 after a disappointing Catalan Grand Prix. Good to see he's not feeling the effects of his big crash that ultimately led to him having to retire from the race on Sunday. So good to see the number 11 up towards the timesheets, the Forwards and Clint's racing team will be pleased to see their bike up there as well. But been really impressed in the last, well, 2.5 Grand Prix now with Filip Salac. Has clearly made a step forward, turned a corner after struggling a little bit in the early part of the season, but Salac now is sort of every day saying that he's got a really good feeling in the OnlyFans American racing team. On board that Kalex was riding the Boston last year in the Elfmark BDS team alongside Jake Dixon as well. So Salac is really starting to find his feet. Was unlucky not to be in that podium fight, just got sort of tangled up in the opening restart into the opening chicane there in Le Mans, which cost him time. He really felt a podium was on over in Le Mans and had a really solid weekend at the Catalan Grand Prix as well. Qualified 7th, finished 7th, was 8th on the Friday as well, so really consistent and obviously going really well this weekend so far after missing pretty much the entire F1 session. Completed 3 laps as Celestino Vietti moved the goalpost slightly.
I don't want to pour cold water on the Filip Salac excitement, because I totally agree. He's looking very good. What might concern him, though, in the race tomorrow, he mentioned after Barcelona that he found it really difficult to overtake because of the short gearing that they have on his American racing Kalex. And when I look at the top speed charts at the moment, we've got top speed rankings down to 24th place. So that's basically all bar 3 riders. Filip Salac's name is not in those 24 names, so he's clearly in the bottom 3 in the field in terms of top speed at the end of the main straight. Once again, you would assume it's down to the gearing setup that they have on that American racing Kalex. So clearly, around the rest of the lap through the corners, he's getting that American racing Kalex working. I do have a slight concern for him, though, that in a pack tomorrow in Moto2, which is what we're likely to see in the heat of racing, how difficult is Filip Salac going to find it to both attack and defend in the Grand Prix tomorrow?
Yeah, just got into the top speed charts. The average from yesterday, Salac, to be fair, was inside that top 5. So maybe they've changed the gear in this morning or just not hit the heights of yesterday. 295 was his average speed. But one name that really stands out to me is Senna Aegis. And to be fair, Salac's teammate Joe Roberts, down there in the bottom 3 of the top speed charts. We know Aegis obviously been super strong all weekend, all season long. Picked up those 2 brilliant victories, but we know Aegis's weak link has been top speed. Nothing to do with Aegis. He's riding the best he ever has done. He explained this really well at the Spanish Grand Prix. Got the gearing right. There's just something not quite right. Aerodynamically, he's all okay. He's the lightest he's ever been. He's getting out of the corners really well, but he is obviously a tall rider, and that matters. Joe Roberts, another tall rider, down there in the bottom 3. 289.5 was Aegis's top speed average. 287 was Roberts' average. They're losing to the fastest rider, which was Ayumi Sasaki, pretty much on average every lap 10 kilometers per hour down the front straight, and that is going to, no matter how quick you are around the corners, that is going to cost you. Not sure, I've not got the maths or the statistics or the data in front of me, but that's at least 2 or 3 tenths you feel down this 1.1 kilometre long front straight.
And what it leads to, particularly if it's your gearing that's the issue, is you can get yourself into the slipstream of someone, and then as soon as you pull out of that slipstream to try and make that overtake, you're just bouncing off the rev limiter and not able to ultimately make the most of that slipstream. So it's potentially something to keep an eye on in tomorrow's Grand Prix. At the moment, over a lap of Mugello, it is not slowing Salac down at all. 5th at the moment, as Vietti's got us down now to 149.6. A scridge in 2nd, ahead of Ethan Guevara, who's in 3rd. So once again, those 2 Boscoscoros that have been standing on podiums, the Boscoscuro riders, at least, of Vietti and Guevara, continue to show their relative pace, and then there's a bit of a gulf between themselves and the other Boscoscoros. The other 4, in fact, are all in qualifying 1, that being Unchu, Canet, Alberto Ferrandez and Luca Lanetta. Here is Guevara through the Biondetti. Almost feels disrespectful to call it a chicane, because it is taken in 3rd gear at around about 170 kilometers an hour. And the slow-mo gives you a little bit of an example of the direction change and the movement that you feel on the bike through there, as Aegis now tackles that corner. You can see him there in 3rd, immediately shifts up to 4th on the way out of Biondetti 2, and so important, as we've been discussing all weekend, to get a good run out of this final corner at Vicini, particularly when you're Senna Aegis, who does appear to be lacking that ultimate top speed. Let's hopefully see how high he gets. Well, we're not going to, unfortunately, because we cut away at the inopportune moment. And Aegis trying to get himself a bit of slipstream there behind Huertas. Back on board we go. with the Australian, and he does just about hit 300 kilometres, and there you could just hear it just underneath our control. You could just hear the revs just beginning to sort of plateau as Aegis was bouncing off the limiter on that Cal-X, and ultimately couldn't make any kind of inroads, could he, on Quertas up ahead of him down that 1 kilometre straight.
Yeah, it's where Aegis is really struggling, as mentioned over in Jerez when he was battling for the lead. Of course, every time he tried to overtake down that short back straight, has to be said, compared to, of course, Mugello. As soon as he pulled out the slipstream, he just was going nowhere. Basically hit 295 according to the speed charts there. So even with slipstream, Aegis at best is equal P14 on the top speed charts. Alonso Lopez is top of them at the moment with 300. Luca Nanetta, another tall rider, to be fair, Nanetta has hit 300. So has Danny Holgado as well, and Celestino Vietti, of course, who we're fully expecting to be well in the pole position fight and well in the victory hunt tomorrow as well. 298. So yeah, if Aegis wants to get himself into that victory fight, he's got a bit of ground to make up. He was 7.5 tenths away yesterday in P10. Automatians Q2 is Australian, so that was job done in terms of Friday. But clearly, as things stand, Aegis not quite got it all hooked up to be sort of in that podium hunt at the moment. A long way to go, of course. He can find some settings here in FP2, but for Aegis, you do feel like he's got to have a good qualifying, got to start on those front 2 rows. Ethan Guevara was saying this yesterday as well, and try and get a good start. And once you feel Aegis is in that group and can use some slipstream to help him stay with these riders around the rest of the circuit, Aegis should be absolutely fine.
In terms of the sort of pace that we're seeing from riders at the moment, Vietti over the line does a 150.1. That followed a 50.2 on his previous lap. Ethan Guevara's most recent lap across the line was a 149.9. Liking the look of Alonso in this morning session too. He did a 50.0 and has just come over the line to do a 150.2 at the moment on his particular lap. Here is the young Colombian on the number 80 now coming through the Arrabbiata sequence, and we're only halfway through this FP2 session, but it certainly appears that Alonso has made the step forward he was looking for.
Yeah, Holgado on a 50.1 last time around as well. So Holgado looking decent as well, inside that top 6 there, just 1 place ahead of Ivan Ortola. Alonso just ahead of him as well. We're looking at Alonso now. He's looking really good, and now he's got no injury issues, hopefully, for the spectacle. We would like to see Alonso in this victory hunt on a regular basis, and I'm sure he will be. I don't think anyone has any doubts that he's going to be a title contender. Let's be honest, with the results he's had so far, for Alonso to be P5, and I know 46.5 points sounds like a lot at this stage of the season, and to be fair, it is, especially when the likes of Gonzalez and Guevara and Celestino Vietti are super consistent, but particularly Gonzalez and Guevara. Alonso's given himself a bit of work to do, but I think once he gets that first podium of the season, once he gets that first victory of the season, which can't be too far away, I'm sure, like London buses, more will be coming at once. So 50.385, slightly slower that time around for Alonso. What he's doing is still plenty quick enough in terms of being with the top riders. Aegis last time around was a 51.2, so let's see how the riders go further on into the session. But yeah, Alonso not looking too shabby.
50.7 for Guevara on his last lap around. Vietti is approaching the line now. He's done a 50.2 once again, a 50.6 for Gonzalez, and you can perhaps see why that lap was ever so slightly slower for David Alonso on that particular occasion. Still quick despite all that.
Yeah, turn 10, Scarpa rear, downhill braking zone, very tricky to get right on a regular basis. A lot of riders were saying yesterday in Moto3 and in Moto2 that finding consistency is very difficult, especially when you've not been here plenty of times before. Alonso, of course, has been here in Moto3 and in Moto2 last year, of course, but yeah, getting that lap nailed on a consistent basis is very tricky around Mugello. But yeah, Alonso just treating us to a nice little slow-mo. Great work from the camera guys and girls out there as always to get those shots, and just about saved it. Not too much of a big save, I don't think, not one of the bigger ones we'll see, but still he'd have felt that, and it was a little moment there to get round turn 10.
This is Daniel Holgado chasing Dani Munoz, a rider who he got very familiar with back in Brazil when they were fighting for victory in the latter stages of that race. Now climbing up over the crest, and you plunge downhill once again into Scarpa here, and visibly Holgado closing in on Munoz, who is down in 18th place in this session. Best he's done so far in this session is a 150.6. Munoz did a 50.3 in practice yesterday afternoon, and yeah, Aspar will be pretty pleased with what they're seeing at the moment from both of their riders. Gonzalez gets well and truly out of the way on the outside of Colentayo. And Holgado doing pretty consistent low 150s here, isn't he? Might lose a little bit of time here and has up behind Munoz, so this lap time will not be particularly special. Holgado, one thing he's not lacking at the moment, looking on the top speed charts, is that overall horsepower and speed down the straights. Expect him to zero in and move past Munoz here. In fact, he was almost past him by the time he got to the finish line there, and that was taking candy for a baby, wasn't it, for Danny Holgado. Still did a 150.572. Munoz is down in 19th on the top speeds. He's giving up 6 kilometers an hour to Holgado in terms of their overall best top speed of the session, and it looks it on that particular lap around.
Yeah, if you needed a reminder, not that anyone does tuning in or us watching and commentating on as well, that slipstream is very impactful here, then that was it from Danny Holgado. Just looking at Luca Nanetta and Jose Antonio Reda, 50.4 for Nanetta, 50.5 for Reda. Decent lap times for the two rookies. Colin Vire slightly so on that time around. So yeah, the most consistent riders so far have been, of course, the ones at the top of the timesheets, but obviously Celestino Vietti 49.6. But we haven't seen another 149 set by anyone in quite a while. Celestino Vietti leading rounds, the OnlyFans American race duo. Here we pick up Luca Nanetta, of course, a home hero. He enjoyed himself yesterday, of course, enjoyed himself at the Catalan Grand Prix as well, picking up his first Moto2 top 10, and it wasn't really a fluke either. Qualified really well over in Catalonia, did Luca Nanetta, and backed it up with a P9 in the race. P10 on the grid, P9 in the race. A really strong ride from the rookie who's had his injury issues this year, and one of the many Italians here this weekend who's hoping to have a good weekend. And he was one of the rookies, like Rueda, who was sort of disappointed to miss out on a fully dry FP1 session. Doesn't look like Ethan Guevara's particularly pleased in the box there, does he? Whereas Guevara in the session is P3, so not a bad session in terms of the one lap he's done to get himself inside that top 3, but for him to be sat in the box at this stage instead of lapping and getting more laps on the board to try and figure out the tyre wear, and for Sunday as well, Denny's on shoe clearly pushing on this lap, and that's judged by the red sector as well. But yeah, something not quite right for Guevara there.
I wonder if Onchu, well, he must have done looking at the lap times with all no disrespect intended to Denis Onchu. Surely a new tyre has gone in here, and we did speak earlier on in the session of how the Mark VDS riders were pretty quick, or certainly quick compared to where they've been for much of the season over longer runs, but when they put a new tyre in to go for a place in Q2, they weren't able to make that jump forward, so perhaps it's no great surprise to see Onchu sticking a tyre in this morning as perhaps a bit of a dress rehearsal for FP2. And given that he was pointing in all sorts of directions